We're here for the final session of today's conference. I think we can all agree it really has been a fantastic conference. So unless I forget later on, I just want to take some time out to thank everyone who's been instrumental in making today work. So obviously I'd like to thank the team at Progressive Britain and the volunteers who've helped out today. I'd like to single out Tom Collins, who's our head of policy and comms, who essentially has put the framework together and was the man who essentially has put this together. So Tom, if you are in the room, thank you very much. But then also working with Tom, we have Roberta, Dylan and Jade working at Progressive Britain, but we've also had help today from Alfie Best, who's a young councillor in my home patch in Torvine, and also from Alex Harrison, who's the new organiser at Labour First, if he's still here. So again, I've probably missed somebody out because I normally do, but basically without the staff and the volunteers, we wouldn't have been able to put today on, so it's good to give them their recognition. So essentially this last session, I think I scared all the panellists by telling them it was going to be a rally and I wanted X, Y, and Z. I've changed my mind slightly. It's more of a gentle end of day session, just to introduce some of our fantastic PPCs that we've been selecting over the last 15 months. Because actually I thought it was really key and really important today that we get as many PPCs talk as possible. So as well as the now 5 people we have on the panel and the 6th we have up on screen, we have had a number of PPCs taking part in those sessions across the day. I'm just wondering if they're still here, whether I should ask them to stand up. So we've got Lucy Rigby here from Northampton North. Lucy, if you'd like to stand up, give Lucy a wave. Those of you who were just in here for the immigration session would have seen Kirsty McNeil chair it superbly. Kirsty, have you... Oh, there you are. Hello. Well, also in the growth session, we had Polly Billington and Jeevan Sander. No, can't say to them. They're here. And there's somebody else I've forgotten now. It shows I'm getting old and I can't remember what goes on. We've also had, what I thought actually was fantastic, this is the first time I've actually even met him, let alone heard him speak, was Dr. Zubir Ahmed, who spoke with Wes in that NHS session. And look, if we get him in, he'll be a massive, massive help to Wes and the team in sorting out the NHS from an impact-based perspective in what needs to happen from the grassroots and from the ground. Grassroots, that's the wrong way, but you know what I mean. From the surgery table up. Well, that might not necessarily fill us with confidence either, but there we go. Have I missed anyone else? Yes, I have. It's Mike Tapp, who is also on the immigration platform. Again, Mike will get, if he wins Dover, will come at it with a fantastic wealth of experience in a field, let's be perfectly frank, that we don't necessarily go to when it comes to picking Labour candidates. So I think fingers crossed and good luck to all of them. But that's enough of me starting. We've now got 6 PPCs on this platform because I've asked Elsie Blundell, who's our candidate in Hayward and Middleton, to join because she would have been the only PPC who we didn't get in front of a microphone. So I thought I didn't want to leave her out. That's all right. And also Lola was running late, so I wasn't sure whether she'd be here. So what we're going to do, so like I said, we've got Sam Rushworth from Bishop Auckland. We've got Elsie Blundell, who's from Hayward and Middleton. We have Lola McEvoy, who's standing in Darlington. Dialing in from Sheffield Central, we have Abtisam Mohamed, Juliet Campbell, who's standing in Broxtowe, and last, not least, is Oliver Bryan, who is our candidate in Burnley. So I think I'm just going to go through in that order and basically have a bit of a chat. For those of you old enough to remember, it's a bit of a Cllr Black moment. I want to know who they are, where they come from, what the challenges are facing them in their day-to-day lives as they try to take the seats back. And then hopefully we'll have time for a couple of questions at the end, and then we can all go to the pub. Right. Is everyone got that one? So, Sam, over to you. 4 or 5 minutes. Tell us why you stood, what you're up for, and actually what the challenges are facing you up in Durham.
Great, thank you. It's great that there's so many northern PPCs on the platform as well. Why am I standing? So, short thing about my background. My life was transformed by the 1997 Labour government. I grew up in what we call child poverty. My parents never had degrees. I saw both my parents go to university while I was in secondary school. And I'm standing because I know that every time there's ever been a Labour government, Britain has taken a giant leap forward. Sadly, there haven't been very many Labour governments. In fact, we've only been in power for 33 years of the last 123. I just want to talk about two things quickly. I want to tell you a few stories from the doorstep of why would a Labour government now improve lives for people in Bishop, and then what's the big challenge. So people I've met in the last couple of weeks, I met a lady, she's not even registered to vote yet, but she wasn't when we met her, but she is now, who is paying the first 2 hours of a 7-hour shift just to have her kids looked after for an hour or two and dropped off at school in the morning. £400 a month it's costing her. And so a Labour government that would have free breakfast clubs would be transformative for her. Think of a woman called Alice I met in Butterknoll. She's lived in this village all her life, and for the last 20 years she's looked after this beautiful garden. And she told me how scared she is that because she's losing her eyesight and won't be able to drive soon, she'll probably have to leave the village because bus services are so poor. There's a few people I met just this week at a sixth form college. They invited me because they're forming a Labour club at the college, and they talked to me about the chronic state of youth mental health services, about the sense that there's no good job opportunities in the town, that there aren't decent apprenticeships. I think of final one, somebody I met in Middleton, Henry, an ageing man who has to travel 6 hours round trip on the bus to Middlesbrough to get his dialysis every other day because the community hospital is practically empty. There aren't enough staff to staff it. And all of those things would be improved if we had a Labour government. And very often, I share with people my excitement about what a Labour government could do. And here's the challenge. This is what I most often hear back. Yeah, but would you, though? Could you really? I don't believe that anybody's capable of changing the country. We're just in such a mess right now. People know that they hate the Conservatives. They know that the country's in a mess. It's really hard for us to inspire hope in people because they've just so downbeaten. And to that, I say, to borrow a phrase from the Obama campaign, yes, we can. And why can we? We can because we're going to be smart with the nation's finances. We can because we're going to base our policy on evidence and not on ideology. We can because we're going to give power back to communities and let people design their own services. I believe that we can, but inspiring people that we can is not an easy task. And my big ask of everyone here is some of us that are in these kind of northern red wall seats, we don't have the same level of activists and finance that you've got. Come up and visit us. We're a great place. It's beautiful. We've got green rolling hills. We've got members who'll put you up. So come up and spend some of your time in the short campaign in our seats campaigning with us. Thank you.
I can see us having a bit of a raffle now, exactly which one of you is going to offer which one of us in this room the best experience in the most northerly bit of the country. I'll give you my price later on. Okay, thank you very much for that, Sam. Now, Elsie, I'll treat you with kid gloves as I literally asked you to come and speak
Right,
5 minutes ago. So could you just tell us a bit about why you're standing and, again, what the challenges are facing you up in Hayward and Middleton?
Yes, of course. Thanks, Nathan. So I suppose, like Sam, I'm a child of the last Labour government. I was born in 1991. I come from a single-parent background. My family actually fled domestic violence. I was in and out of foster care growing up. But the last Labour government completely changed my life. My family benefited from Sure Start, child tax credits. When I went to college, I got EMA. I was the first person in my family to go to university where I got a full maintenance grant. And Labour and government completely transformed my life. And I know that for people in Hayward and Middleton, the next Labour government will do the same. I suppose in terms of the challenges in Hayward and Middleton, the primary ones are economic. There's a lot of deprivation, and we have a lot of issues with transport connectivity as well. So those will certainly be my priorities if I manage to get elected and boot out Chris Clarkson MP, who's the current MP, Conservative MP in Hayward and Middleton at the moment. So yeah, that's all I'd like to say really. Come up and campaign in Hayward with us. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Elsie. I will let you off. The others have had a bit more notice. So, Lola.
Hello.
Hello. It's over to you.
Hello everybody, it's lovely to be here and to see some smiling familiar faces from campaigns gone by, so hiya. My name's Lola McEvoy, I'm the parliamentary candidate for the Labour Party in Darlington, which still makes me feel like giddy when I'm able to say it. It's my hometown and... was that me? No. A poltergeist or something? No. It's my hometown and I'm standing because I've spent 10 years working on campaigns across our movement with ordinary working people coming together to fight for change against a Tory government. And all of the changes that we've won have been despite Labour being in opposition. And I want us to win and get over the line so that we can transform Britain for the better, as we all do. I think I've got a slightly different brief on this because I'm thinking about what things I want you all to lobby on my part after the local elections and what ideas you can take away from what I'm about to say. So I work for a trade union. Obviously, we're here in the TUC. The trade unions formed the Labour Party so that working people could have a voice for their aspirations. Sometimes the Tories are the party that are seen to be the party of aspiration, the party of dreaming of things better, the party of people doing better than their parents have. But I don't believe that. I believe that's our party. And our party is the party where people have come together over the years and taken the risks at their own peril and fought and won and delivered change for their communities. And I think a lot of the things that we're talking about at the moment are about securing the basics for people. Things that I was lucky enough to take for granted growing up, things like a health service that worked, things like a train service that worked, things like Sure Start, things like a really nice drama club that was funded by the local council. All the things that we're fighting for, fighting tooth and nail to get back, were things that we had in 2010. And when I'm on the doorstep and I'm speaking to people, they believe that we can get the bread and butter basics back, but they don't believe that we're the party of their hopes and dreams and aspirations for a future that they want to see for their children. They're not excited about the future for their children, and that's my challenge to everybody here, is how do we take that next step? And I am not being blasé or dismissive about the incredible journey that the Labour Party has been on under Cllr's leadership. It has been phenomenal, the rate of change that we've seen to be this far ahead in the polls and to see the local election results. But I think for us to get over the line in a place like Darlington, we're going to have to cultivate a culture in government and in the run-up to getting into government that actually delivers so that people can have a seat at the table shaping their own futures where they're excited about what their children can look forward to. And I think all of the campaigns that I've worked on, the best bit, win or lose, in the trade union movement, in the Living Wage Foundation, win or lose, the best bit has been watching people walk taller. And my ambition for Britain is to see us all hold our head up and walk a bit taller together with a seat at the table for a progressive future. So that's my challenge to you guys.
Thank you, Lola. Now I'll thank you for your patience, Abtisam. We'll now move over to Abtisam Mohamed, who is our candidate in Sheffield Central. So again, Abtisam, if you could start by telling us a bit about yourself, and again, like Lola's just done, if you could talk about what your ambition for Britain is as our candidate in Sheffield.
Okay, lovely, thank you. It's good to be here virtually with you all. I'm sorry I couldn't be with you there on the stage. So my name's Abtisam. I am the parliamentary candidate for Sheffield Central. I'll be taking over from Paul Blomfield, who has been an excellent MP and has left a very strong majority of 26,000 for the area. A little bit about me. I was born in the Yemen. I came to the UK with my mum and big sister in the 80s, and my father and grandfather worked in the steel industry in Sheffield. They gave over 40 years of their life working in the Sheffield steel industry. I began my career working in the voluntary sector, and I worked, like some of the others on the panel, through the last Labour government. So I've seen what a strong Labour government can do. The investment that we saw in early years in childcare, adult learning, youth provisions across the area. So I've seen what good looks like. But I've also seen what bad looks like as well. And it was the Tories getting into power and the effect that this had on our area, on my area, that inspired me to get involved in politics. I set up my own practice a few years down the line, and I specialise in immigration, asylum and human rights law. And some of the areas that I'm really, really interested in terms of supporting people, the passion that I have through politics, through the activism, is access to legal services, making sure that we have the right level of support for people, mental health services, developing small businesses. And these are some of the key issues that come up on the doorstep as well as one of the big key aspects, which is trust in politics. And I think we have a lot to do in terms of rebuilding trust. One of the key areas that I'm really interested in, and I want the party to really lean into, is localism, and making sure that we see the intrinsic link between what happens at a local level and national politics. For me, everything that I've done, everything that I've worked through has placed communities at the heart of everything. And communities feel a detachment from national politics. And that shouldn't be the case. It should be the case that we ensure that everything we do on a national arena benefits local people, and there are too many that see that would become detached, that we don't recognise that the decisions that we make on a national level impact local services, impact the demand for local services, impact access to local services, and you know, importantly for many people, communities are everything that they see and believe in. So not only do people feel poorer because of the last 13 years, but they look around them as well and feel that their areas look poorer as well. So I'm passionate about community regeneration. I'm challenging of the sort of the levelling up, because I've not really seen that levelling up has happened. And I'm really keen to ensure that places like Sheffield are given the investment that they need, because communities are crying out for support and crying out to be heard on the national arena. So that's my little bit. Thank you.
No, that was great. Fantastic. Thank you. And hopefully we can arrange an event next time round when there aren't train strikes on, so we can actually see Dan here in person. Moving on then. So we've got Juliet Campbell. Juliet is our candidate in Broxtowe. So again, Juliet, if you could just again talk us a bit about yourself. Okay. And then also, as I've just asked both Lola and Abtisam, if you could talk us through what your ambition for Britain would be.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Great. When I was asked to come onto this panel, the first and to talk about my ambition for Britain, the first thing that came to mind was to talk about my ambitions for the NHS. So those of you that know me will know that I've spent the majority of my career working in or with the NHS. Then I thought, no, someone else is going to talk about that. I'll talk about something else. I'll talk about education. And again, it's one of those areas where I've spent a lot of time. I have a son who is neurodiverse. He is dyslexic. And we went through hell trying to get his education sorted. I could talk about those two things. But actually, when I thought about what my ambition for Britain is that my ambition for Britain is a place where people have trust in leadership and its institutions. Trust in the NHS, trust in its education. It's a place where our public services are well funded and that they are secure working conditions, and where people can access support and help in a respectful and timely way. Those things sound like they're given. They are not. This Conservative government has systematically eroded our trust in our institutions and in our leadership. And they've made us feel vulnerable, and we're unclear about what it is that we can expect from them and from our institutions. It is a basic right that we should trust the institutions that we use. I've worked under a Labour government, and I can see how it works and how it works incredibly well. So one of the reasons why I stood to be a candidate is because I want to see that change happen in this country. It's my ambition that when I go to an NHS trust and I need treatment, that I'm confident that I am going to get that treatment. And should I need follow-up, that it's given to me in a timely way. And it's the best that's on offer, irrespective of the colour of my skin, irrespective of whether or not I am disabled, irrespective of whether or not I live in a county, in a region, or in a city, irrespective of my sexuality, my gender, or my socio-economic background. I should be able to get access to a service that works well and meets my needs. And we can see the insecurity in this country. We can see how it's impacting on people. We can see it through the cost of living crisis, the NHS crisis, the housing crisis. All these crises weren't here before. They're here now, and we have to get a Labour government in so that we can fix it, so that people can trust the leaders and they can trust our institutions. That is why I am standing as a PPC.
Okay then, no pressure, Oliver. But lastly, I'd like to introduce everyone to Oliver Ryan, who's our PPC in Burnley. Oliver.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. Well, what a day. Let's talk about my patch of Burnley. Real inflation is the highest in the country in Burnley because of inadequate housing stock, because of poor inflation, heavy reliance on cars, and the need to get out to get on in life. For Burnley, it really is about the economy, stupid. And my ambition is to fix that for Britain and for Burnley. And let me tell you, Cllr is cutting through. Last week we gained 2 seats. Our first gains in a local election since 2013, which is huge. Great for Burnley. We're rebuilding our base. We're not standing on righteousness alone. We're talking about the issues that matter to people. We're talking about jobs, homes, kids, opportunities, the pound in your pocket, with real solutions, public services that work. And that in and of itself is radical at the moment in places like Burnley. So people are fed up with the Tories, as I think we'd probably all say in here. Yes, but they're still, and it is Eurovision, so they're still making their minds up about us. There's more to come, friends. Still making their minds up about us. Have we got the resolve, the backbone to challenge the big issues and vested interest, wherever they are? Now, we've talked today about business, immigration, public services, to name a few. And despite local gains, we know this isn't the time for euphoria. And now this is the time to fly the flag for the type of country that we want to live in. And not just ooh-ah a little bit, but to raise the country's ambition and show that our best days are ahead as a nation. Give people the confidence to see into the future. What does 10 years of a Labour government look like? And that's the magic that we've still got to light in people. And I think we saw part of that through the local elections last week. So the last Labour government delivered for Burnley. Mass urban housing renewal. A whole third of the town centre was completely rebuilt. Recovery after riots, public services that could be defended on, cash in people's pockets, and the expansion of industry. And I know, as another child of that new Labour government, not to make people feel their age in here, that Labour government had lasting and living impact in towns like Burnley, in Ashton, where I'm from, in Manchester more broadly. But the contribution we made to the national psyche, the national effort, that feeling that brighter times were ahead, of pride, of hope, people haven't had that for some years now. And that's the picture I think Labour has to paint in bold colours as we get closer to the general election. And we're doing that, and Cllr started that today. This can be a country that we're proud to pass on to our kids and grandkids, as Lola says, where people and industries thrive. So I'll finish just to say, as everybody else has, please come to Burnley. Go to Loughborough, go to Bishop Auckland, Haywood, Darlington and other places. Broxtowe. Midlothian. My ambition for Britain and Burnley is a confident, inclusive, thriving place. with people that feel proud of where they're from. And as much as it's a joke on the Eurovision, where people are proud to fly with their morals and live with them on their sleeves. And I think we do have that. That does live in people. Our job is to ignite that, I think, as we get close to the general. So thank you, Chair.
That was just the right side of being too cheesy, but thank you very much.
That's me. That's a description of me.
No comment. Right, so I've got two questions, or maybe one question I want to ask the panel, then we'll open it up. But we will finish probably at quarter to 5 on time, because it's been a long day for everyone, I'm sure. And I'm quite taken by something both Abtisam and I think Elsie pointed out, and Lola as well, and this issue about disconnect with communities. But at the same time, there is the parallel sort of disconnection with our institutions, as Juliet has pointed out. And a lot of the time, I think we as a party talk a lot about actually the problems with communities moving far away from us. But actually only recently am I aware of people talking in any detail about this issue about loss of faith in institutions, which obviously comes hand in hand. And I think that they are both illustrations of a country that is has some very many deep-seated problems and is not very well at ease with itself. But there are glimmers of hope, aren't there? So it's just interesting, now that you've all been selected and you are going out there, obviously speaking to voters and residents, but engaging with those communities as a public figure, not just a knocker of doors. What glimmer of hope do you think there is for Labour actually being able to... Stop laughing, Georgia. What glimmer of hope is there for Labour to be able to re-engage with our communities and start rebuilding that from the ground up? And again, that's a very long-winded question, so I'll start with Sam and give everyone else a bit more time to think.
I get no time. What's the hope? There is a lot of hope. One of the things that always touches me actually on doors is the amount of times that parents or grandparents want to tell me about their children who've done well at university and how they've left the town and are normally living somewhere else in a good job. And one of the things that gives me a lot of hope actually is our plan for an industrial strategy and for a Green New Deal, because County Durham once upon a time powered Britain, and I believe that we can again, and we're uniquely well placed to take a lot of the investment that the next Labour government is planning, and it will bring well-paid, skilled jobs to our area. I think people will see that change. I think people will see a change in their health service. They will see a change in mental health services. It's not going to be overnight, though, and the good news is the voters know that. Like, they often say to me, you've got a pretty difficult challenge if you win this seat because we're in such a mess, and they know it. But as long as we're honest with them and take them with us, I've got huge hope that, as all Labour governments have done, that the next Labour government is going to mean huge progress for our country.
Thank you very much. Apparently I've missed somebody out earlier on. So Danny Beals, you still here? No, that means obviously he was upset he was upset I didn't, oh, he is there. Can you wave at us, Danny? So Danny's fighting against Boris Johnson in Hillingdon. And because I forgot, I at least will come to Hillingdon to vote to come knock on doors on Saturday. So thanks very much. Sorry for that interruption, folks. Elsie.
Yeah, I'd completely agree with Sam, actually. When I knock on doors in Harewood, voters, people do feel very hopeful about the prospect of the next Labour government. Locally, like Oliver, Labour did really well in the council elections right across Harewood and Middleton. We actually had some challenges, I suppose, with hyper-local independents, and we defeated them in Middleton this time. They just got in for 1 year, and I think people have just kind of come back to Labour because they do see us as the party of hope, and we're setting out a really optimistic message locally in Harewood as well as nationally as well. I think the things that Sam said about well-paid, skilled jobs are absolutely true. We've got a really good offer on that locally, and we're talking about that nationally as well. And in my day job as a transport planner, I do feel really hopeful, and Kia mentioned some of these things earlier, that we're going to start to bridge that north-south divide when it comes to regional inequalities in transport investment and deliver things like HS2. I was quite pleased to hear Keir saying that some of it should be delivered from the north, and the sort of east-west disparities when it comes to Northern Powerhouse rail as well. So transport, connectivity, and connectivity in general, whether it's getting people to those jobs in various towns and cities and creating jobs in our own community and in Haywood is something that I'm able to talk about on the doorstep, and that people are feeling quite hopeful about as we look towards, hopefully, a Labour government after the next general election.
Thanks, Elsie. Lola.
So, what gives me hope? Okay. I think it's interesting because if you cast your minds back to the big society chat where David Cameron said that he was going to cut all of our public services, cut all of our third sector funding, and everybody was going to do it for free. One of the things that gives me hope is that we have got fantastic third sector organisations who are doing the work with our communities on the ground in Darlington, who are plugging the gap, and they're doing service delivery, and it's an incredible contribution to civic society. But it's a double-edged sword, because I would like to see those people paid properly and those to be fully funded services that everybody can rely on. And I think the thing that gives me hope are the communities coming together with like side hustles. I know that's not probably the right word, but they're innovating and they're on their estates. And I'm going around knocking doors and I see a woman, it was around Halloween, and I see a woman with a big tray, like you're selling popcorn at the cinema, a big tray full of party bags, of little Halloween party bags. And she was going door to door, selling party bags to people on the estate who were welcoming her in the house, giving her a fiver, taking 5 party bags for Halloween, and then she was going on her way. And I see these little innovations of entrepreneurial spirit in our communities, in communities that the media would have you believe are burnt out, left behind, run down and rubbish. And I think what gives me hope is seeing those people stand up. And again, to go back onto my challenge to us as a party, are those people naturally looking to us as the answer for government? So they might look to us as the answer for the public services. They know we're the party of the NHS. We won a lot of gains in Darlington. We kicked out some independents. The Greens did well in Darlington as well. We didn't get over the line, right? We did not get a majority on the council, so now we're going to be in no overall control. I'm confident that if we can connect with that entrepreneurial spirit and that aspiration, and we can win the trust back of those people in those communities without patronising them and telling them how to do what they're already doing, without saying that we'll nationalise it all or that we'll fund it up to the hilt, if we can actually connect with them and make them remember that they are Labour people and that they're from Labour communities and they have a Labour history and a shared history, I think I'm confident that that will get us over the line. But I think that is the challenge for us. Sorry, that wasn't very hopeful.
That's all right. Abtisam, over to you.
I'm going to echo what is it Lola, the previous speaker, just said? Yeah, I mean, for me, I come from a background in regeneration, community regeneration, and if we learnt anything from the pandemic, it was how communities really came together to sort of pull through, and they were at the heart of taking things forward. And I think if I see anything in terms of hope and a real sort of will and want and desire for change, it's directly within communities, and they want to sort of support us for that change. So I have lots of positive conversations with people on the doorstep where they want their voice to be heard. They want services to be as local as possible, and they want recognition for the services that are working well. So even though we've had sort of a decline and demise of services over the last 13 years and a lack of investment, people have really tried to pull together and really try to support local people and support communities, often on a shoestring. And, you know, they look to us, they look to our party for solutions going forward. And, you know, I hope that we can offer them solutions going forward. And I would like to think that with more devolved powers, with real investment in proper levelling up so that our communities don't feel forgotten, we can lend that hope to communities. We can show them that we are their party, that will have that investment there. And as I said earlier, I worked through the last Labour government, and the area in which I lived had 50 million of regeneration funds, the New Deal for communities, which we've never seen since. And, you know, communities need that kind of investment. And all we've seen is that the decline and the widening inequalities because of the lack of investment in local areas. So I would like to hope that the devolved powers, more investment in communities, people do see that hope. And I've had lots of positive conversations with people. And I think that if we place communities at the heart of our policies, we're in the right direction.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Abtisam. So, Juliet, what is that message of hope?
I'm listening to everything that everyone said, and I think for me, what gives me hope is that, quite frankly, it couldn't get worse. You know, the government that we currently have done so much damage, but what's very, very clear and what's coming out loud and clear through all of the policies that Cllr has been putting out there is that this is the party of hope, that change is at hand, that they've recognised that all the damage that this current government have done to all of our sectors, that there's change afoot and that they want to make change. And there's a recognition, I think that's key, is that there's a recognition that that damage is done, and we want to do right by people. That's what the Labour Party wants to do. They want to make a difference. I think post-pandemic, communities, their voices are so much louder. People are so much clearer about what's important to them and what they want. And what we can do as a Labour Party is to make sure that we listen. And not only do we listen, we act on what we hear and what they say. Just listening to the previous event that happened when we were talking about refugees, the shift in the way that people think about migration is absolutely astounding. And people talk about compassion and really looking at ways in which we can assist and support people in a way that not only helps them, but also helps us. And I think that is a significant shift that's happening in this country. People's voices, people refuse to be silenced. And what we can do is make sure that we listen and what they say gets sufficient traction so that it impacts on our policies and the way that we start to design and deliver our services in the future.
Okay, thanks, Juliet. Now, Juliet said things can't get any worse. I feel a song coming on. That is not a challenge to Oliver to get it into his final remarks.
You can walk my path, Nathan. You can
your feet are far too big for me to walk in your shoes. Anyway, get on to it.
I forgot what the question was now. Go on.
Basically, we were trying to work out. I was coming out with a litany of miseries. What is the hopeful? What hope do you see out there whilst knocking on doorsteps that can power us through to a victory?
I think people genuinely feel, as has been said, things can't get worse for them. Somebody told me the other day they were outraged about the fact that a big Cllr pack was £7 now in the shops and that a large coffee was £9. That means a lot to people. The fact that they go into the shops and they can't provide for their kids. I'd say I'm, single guy living in Burnley. I struggle. And if you've got a family, you've got kids, it's a really worrying time for you. So I think the hope for them is that change is on the horizon, but we can't kind of just sell ourselves as the cavalry's coming and things are going to change, everything's going to get better, and get a song to say that. I think we need to face the fact that the last few years in Britain have been strangled by populist politics that has made people feel that politicians promise everything and don't deliver any of it, sort of spanning from Brexit, that they say all the right things around take back control and we can make things as they were and make Britain great again and all the rest of it. And actually, when it's come down to it, things have gotten worse and they feel a bit abandoned by us and by the Tories and by politics more generally. So I think the thing that gives me a glimmer of hope is that with Cllr and with the manifesto that I think we'll set out and the confidence I think that we've now got as a party to speak our mind and to speak what people say to us on the doorsteps, is that we're going to bring an end to that populist politics. And it might not feel the most exciting thing. Nobody's wearing a hat, in here that says make Britain Cllr again. But what we are saying is we've got an alternative. It's going to work. Things can get better. And let's get back to growing up politics again. I think that for me is probably the most important cultural thing to win back these areas that were culturally Labour long ago. Thanks.
So actually, as it's now 4:45, I'm not proposing to take any questions from the floor. Was that somebody wanted to say? No? Well, nobody seems to want one anyway. So basically, what I would like, though, I'm going to embarrass them. If Lucy, Danny, Kirsty, you could stand up. There's no other PPCs left in the room, are there? But also to give Danny, Lucy, Kirsty, Sam, Elsie, Lola, I forgot Polly, she'll tell me off later on, Abtisam, Juliet and Oliver, a massive round of applause because it's on. Because they're part of a fantastic cohort of PPCs that have been selected for the next election, and I, for one, I'm really optimistic about the quality of our MPs going to Parliament if Cllr wins the next election. So on that very positive note, it just the last thing for me to do is say thank you very much for coming today. I think we've had a fantastic day. Like I said earlier on, I'm really proud of the work the team's done. The schedule was fantastic. I think Cllr really hit the spot this morning. And I know from talking to him afterwards, the support that he's getting from you guys and anyone watching means an awful lot to him, so keep it up. I'd like to thank again to our partners from the Progressive Policy Institute for taking part today, and we're definitely in discussion about how we can do more joint projects in the future. I guess the very final thing to say, for those so inclined, we'll be going off to the Museum Tavern for a drink, so thank you very much.